Welcome to our The Right Way business growth discussions, and it's great to have you again. My gosh, we've been doing this so many times. I still just find it incredible that we've been able to do this for you all, and it's good to have you on the event. I mean, we've got a real packed event. We've got some rock star people who are going to be helping us through the discussions, and obviously clearly an opportunity for you at the same time to be involved as well. Very much an opportunity to get involved. We're on all the social media platforms, from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, etc. So please, if you want to be involved, just reach out in terms of your question. It should come through on the chat or on the platform. If it doesn't, then I'll pick it up in another way anyway. But we'd love to have some of your questions on that anyway. So before we get going as well, I just want to introduce a couple of guests among us. Ladies first, as always. And we've got Catherine Paisley in the house. Hello, Catherine. How are you?
I'm very well, Wayne. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. And Catherine is one of our corporate lawyers at Risk and K, and heads up the corporate team there. I don't know if there's anything more you want to add to that, Catherine. You're free to do so.
Plenty more I could add. Yes, for those of you who don't know me, don't know Rix & Kay, we're a regional law firm based in Kent and Sussex. We've been around for a number of years now. We're a full service firm, but as Wayne's just said, I head up the corporate and commercial practice. And it's nice to be with you all today. Thank you for having me.
No, great. And our other expert guest is Andrew Young. And Andrew Young's a financial planner and works really with business leaders and owners around the Southeast as well. I'm working for St. James's Place. And Andrew, you want to say a little bit more to the narrative that I've just brought there?
Hi, Wayne. Yeah, hi, everyone. So I've had a 15-year career working in commercial banking after SMEs, from roughly turnover, seeing how they grow over that period of time to an exit stage. And I made a decision to change career paths 2 years ago, and I've gone down the financial planning route to try and support those owners, to support them when they look to leave and exit their businesses, to provide them the right advice to make sure that their income takes them to a period of time that enables them to live out retirement if they need it, but trying to support clients as they go, really.
Good. Excellent. Well, again, appreciate you guys coming on the call. Let me just tell you where we're at and the sort of direction of travel of what we're trying to do today, really. And certainly, first of all, we're going to be looking at, the sort of, just the introduction, really, but ultimately getting really into the meat and heart of the discussions. And then hopefully we'll have some Q&A. Again, like I said, I'll be hopefully able to pick up some of the Q&A elements in relation to the discussions, but hopefully at the same time, if I don't, then we'll interject here and there. But or just say drop me some information on LinkedIn, etc. going forward. So, like I said, that's really important to do that. But let me just give you that sort of introduction in terms of our discussion today, because I think it's really important to just set the scene for what we're going to be talking about today, anyway. And the bottom line is that if you look at the sort of narrative that is in the marketplace, the headlines are quite stark. It says that 33% of business owners have a formal succession plan in place. All right, and when you talk to people, of those 33%, it's quite ropey, the plans that are in place for succession planning. That's one aspect. But the other aspect is that 40% of business owners have not prepared for business transition or exit. So, the train will stop one day, folks. It will stop in different ways, through health reasons, through issues with the business, for you retiring, whatever it is. So what do you do then? And it's incredible that if you look at those people, there's a lot of people that have not prepared for business transition or exit as well. And on the back of that, again, 70% of business leaders want to fund retirement through their sale. However, only 20 to 30% are successful. So, in all the best will of the world, we do want to sort of fund our retirements, but ultimately, how do you do that? We, even if we don't sell the business, how do we ensure that we have enough funds for retirement and for our times that we want to wind down in the business? So, I think that's really, really super important. And I think I want to really just highlight those going forward as well in our discussions as well. So just give you that sort of overview narrative of what we're trying to do and achieve. So, on that basis, I just want to ask the first question, and just to ask the panelists really in terms of why is it important to plan for exiting the business even if it is 20 years in the future. And this is really talking to the sort of younger folk among us who are business leaders as well, because sometimes, people feel that, oh, why do I want to think about the future now? I just want to build this unicorn of a business now. So, why is it important to plan for the exit business? Let's start with you, Andrew, first, and then we'll get Catherine to have her say on that.
So I think it's important, and I will be saying this as a financial planner, because I think plan for the future at the start and work your way. So if you've got so it is in 5, 10, 20 years time to sell the business or come and take it off your hands, mainly coming through, having that plan in place at the start, you to work back to understand how you can get to that market that you're looking to do. Be just that the plan's there and that gets adapted every year. So you go back to it and look at it and how do I get to that end point? And it could evolve over the period of time. So when we're looking at businesses, there's so much stuff that happens in the market that might mean that you have to go off to on a different path to make sure that you continue to make your profitability in your business. But if you have that structure in place where you know that you would like to be exiting the business in 10 years or 20 years time, everything you do on the planning side will get you to that point. So having that clear plan in place, you can put everything for your family and making sure that, like you said, I found that quite interesting with the percentages in how much you will need when you look to sell the business. You can work around that and put cash flow modeling in place to enable you to get to that point.
No, it's a fair point, and I think from my perspective as well, and you rightly point out, the end point is really important and work backwards from that, and I really love that. That's really super important as well in terms of what you're trying to achieve and then work backwards. But at the front end, even setting up the business to give you that opportunity to exit effectively is really important. And I don't know if we want to talk to the narrative, Catherine, around setting up the business so that at least especially in businesses where you've got different partners involved in the whole process, what you should do at the beginning to allow at least the opportunity to realise some outcome in the future.
I think you've made a key point there, Wayne, is it's not always about what you need to achieve. You're doing it in most scenarios with other people. So you'll have businesses with many shareholders or perhaps 2 or 3 shareholders. You might have set up a company with a family member. It's quite unusual that you're talking about people who are driving their business by themselves. And they, of course, have greater control over what that exit might look like in due course. But if you are setting up a business with other people, then you need to be talking to them early doors about how you run the business all the way through its life, or certainly from now, how you anticipate running the business, and B, starting to think even at that early stage about what might happen in the event of an exit. The key, when you're talking about a limited company, which I think most people are, obviously, in a general partnership, things are slightly different. In a limited liability partnership, things are slightly different. But the key for all of those entities, whether it's limited company, limited liability partnership, or a general partnership, the key is that the people involved are agreeing at the outset what that looks like for them. So that is, as I say, how the business is run, how the parties interact with each other, the rules and obligations that they're imposing on themselves, but also what happens if. So we're talking about setting up effectively a prenup agreement. It's what happens when things go well, and also starting to think about what might happen when things don't go quite so well, which could include, how we make our exit in that event. And it doesn't have to be because there's been a dispute. You also need to be thinking about, when you're talking with the people you're going into business with, is, it could be that I go into business with someone who's 15 years younger than me or 15 years older than me.
Yeah.
So you need to be thinking about how you structure things so that the older person perhaps makes an exit earlier. All of these things need to be taken into account. And the earlier you start to think about that, then obviously the greater chance you have of making a success of it. But also, Andy's point is absolutely relevant, that any of these documents, the agreements that you put in place, they are not cast in stone for all time. They should be fluid. You should be reviewing them on a regular basis.
I love the word prenup, and obviously it's quite topical in obviously relationship elements. But obviously it's legally, it comes back to that sort of what we call shareholders agreement aspect. But I cannot believe, and I do this all the time, as you know, I see a lot of business leaders. The amount of business leaders that do not have a shareholders agreement in place is just staggering. Absolutely staggering. And I want to talk to some of the other documents that we should have as well, Andy, as well. But I want to just really touch on that aspect, Catherine, because I think people don't underestimate the importance of that document as part of a business evolution and development going through it, and then obviously through to exit. And more importantly, as you rightly point out, in the event of anything material in terms of health, mental capacity or acuity happen. So can you just speak to that, if you don't mind?
Or falling out with each other.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Or falling out with each other. So the key is that the parties involved are sure of what they're doing and how they're going to go about doing it. So when you start out in a business, when you set up a shareholders agreement, then one of the most powerful things that comes out of that is the fact that you are talking to each other about the future. So A, about how you want this business to run, and B, about what the future might look like. And those conversations sometimes might lead you to think, actually, this isn't going to work at all, but ideally it works. And you set up a shareholders agreement or something of that ilk. So again, in a general partnership, it's a partnership agreement. In a limited liability partnership, it's a members agreement, something that sets out the way in which you work together, the obligations you have towards the business, the obligations you have towards each other. It can be that you don't need a shareholders agreement if your articles of association are well crafted. So if you go into business and you just use what's called the model articles, which are the template articles laid down by the Companies Act, with nothing else alongside them, then you're potentially putting yourselves at risk in the sense of you don't have that plan in place. The company will run, that's fine, but you aren't looking after all of the other elements that maybe you ought to be thinking about. The potential you have to craft things the way you want them to look, that's what drafting a shareholders agreement gives you. That's what crafting really good articles of association gives you. Sometimes you need both. Sometimes you need bespoke articles of association coupled with a shareholders agreement. And one of the other things that we can think about, which I'm sure Andy is very familiar with, and this is another reason to start thinking about potential exits when you are younger, maybe than you're an awfully long way away from thinking an exit of an exit, is you can start talking with your business partners, the people you're going into business with, about the possibility of cross-option agreements linked to life policies, which all tie in with shareholders agreements. And that is a way in which you are future-proofing your exit, really. But that is really talking about an undesired exit. So that's insurance against death, or quite often permanent incapacity.
No, absolutely.
That's something else that can be taken into account in the early stages. And of course, the younger you are, the easier it is to mitigate against those risks when you're talking about taking on life policies.
No, absolutely, and to get appropriate cover. You want to just touch on that, Andy, because there's a whole raft of different protection elements around it, not just the normal ones that we know, but there's some other ones for specialists for business as well. So can you just talk into that so people can consider what's at the outset that they should have?
Well, I think you're probably looking at two forms. The first is key man cover, which is that if you're going into a business, you might have an individual who's really good at the planning, really good at building the structure of the business, and then you might have someone who's excellent on the sales part and manage to get a lot of business coming in. So you work hand in hand. Now, we always look at the worst case scenario first. So on the protection side, what happens when the person who's generating a lot of income becomes ill or unfortunately dies, there isn't no cover in place. So you as a business have lost that salesperson coming in. So having a form of key man cover will enable you to receive some funds that will enable potentially for you to employ someone to come in to do the job on the same sort of salary to get that growth come in, or actually cover you for the period where you've got that person working in the business. The other form of it is more down the line of shareholder protection, because if you get to a point where your business is really going great, profitable, you're making the exit is coming closer down the line because of how successful the business has become, and one of those individuals dies, there's going to be a share business that will then go passed down to the family and the wife if it's in the correct format when you originally put in the agreements at the start. So how does the business end up paying out those funds? So if you haven't got these protections, where the company's going to have to find that from their own cash flow, you have to exit the business or sell the business to be able to pass that money out, which the individuals team and the owners wouldn't potentially want to do. So having that shareholder protection, pay those funds out to the family, covers you from having those funds yourself. So they're two really good, important bits to have in place. There is a cost to that. So if you're in your startup phase, it might be a bit more difficult for you to put that place at the start. But as you grow, it's definitely something that you should speak about and put in place for all the key people in the firm.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and the key man insurance. I've been involved in that for so many years already, and like I say, as individuals, we all think we're invisible, and as business leaders, we always think that we are going to be, there forever, and I think having that security that if anything happens to us on the journey, then there's a pot of money that allows the business to be either managed effectively or appropriate plans according to your wishes to be executed is so important. I don't know about you guys, but I've had a couple of examples where people have had issues or whatever it is, and obviously in the will, they're left to the partner. In this case, is the two wives, to deal with the matters, and both of them have not been involved in the business, and that can be a recipe for disaster. So again, come back to what you're talking about, Catherine, in relation to ensuring that your shareholders agreement details that element in terms of what happens in the event of exit.
Well, this is it. That's again another key point is the idea of these arrangements, that the cross option arrangements linked to life policies, is that a pot of funds will become available to pay out the beneficiaries of those shares in order that the shares don't stay with the beneficiaries of the will.
Yeah.
Because the beneficiaries, if I were to die, then I would like my family to be looked after financially. But, assuming I'm the one that's in business with other people, they don't want my family to be running the business. My family doesn't know about that business. What they want is that the shares stay safe, stay, under the control of the people who've always had control, but that my family is looked after financially. It's a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm.
There is, apart from the fact, as Andy has alluded to, there's of course a cost to it. Any insurance policy, there's a cost attached to it, and that cost increases as the shareholders get older and get a little bit closer to when an undesirable exit might be more likely, I suppose.
No, 100%. And when you think about that exit element as well, what's your experiences, guys, in relation to people? What sort of mistakes do they make in especially those who are coming up to that time of retirement, realizing that they're not in that position to do what they want to do? What sort of things that you find, people are struggling with, in terms of that, taking that next step and thinking, oh my gosh, I think I could retire, but now I can't. Andy.
So I think this is probably the most important part of this. Speak to experts before you get to that point. So obviously, if you're looking to, and you want to get as much out of your business as possible, it's coming to someone who can give business advice about growth, so that you can then put all your efforts in over the next 2 to 3 years to generate that will add value to the exit or the exit part of the business that you're going to. The second part of it is that understand what your goal is. So what is your retirement plan? So if you go into a business and you're don't know the market that you're in, you don't know who can potentially purchase the business from you, you don't know the value of what you can sell your business for, you're going to get into a position where you're going to come down a line to exit and go, might not have any transactional value in my business to sell. And therefore, if you haven't been using your business down the route, and I will say it's a financial advisor into a pension each year that you can have running along the side of your business, you're going to come to a period of time where you're going to be looking and thinking, I haven't looked into this in enough detail, right decisions on behalf of myself and my family. I could be stuck where I can't exit and I'm going to have to continue to work a lot longer than I thought I would do into the business that I was in. So having the clear plan at the start, like we've gone back to, and the first question was, having that plan, knowing where you want to be, getting to the right point, speaking to the experts who can advise you on that, will always put you in a better position when it comes to retiring and exiting your business.
I think that's absolutely valid. Wayne, your question was what mistakes do we see people making, and I think Andy's said it loud and clear there. It's people not having those thought processes until they're ready to exit. Excuse me. So if you are not thinking about what your future might look like until you are ready to have that future, it's too late by that point. The ideal is that you're starting to put the plans in place considerably earlier. They could be fluid plans, they could be flexible plans, but nonetheless, you have to start having those thought processes. And again, I completely agree with Andy. It's build a team of experts around you. If you've got the wherewithal to do so, then have those people ready and available. You need to be talking to your independent financial advisor. You need to be talking to your accountants. You need to have tax advice and fairly sensible tax advice. If you are thinking that a sale could be an option, then a corporate finance advisor is a good person to have on board. And obviously, you need your lawyers on board.
100%. And just let me just address the elephant in the room. To be fair, really, people don't talk or like to talk about wills and the importance of wills in this process. So again, people don't think they're indestructible, and therefore they leave this until the very last minute, or sometimes not at all. What's the danger of not having a will in part of exiting a business? You wanted to. I know we've touched on elements of that, but I just wanted to really reinforce the importance of having the will as part of that real, I can put it, stronghold elements to protect your assets going forward to your loved one and families. And Kathy, will start first of all with yourself, and then go to Andy.
Yeah, fine. So I will caveat everything I'm about to say with the fact that I am not a private client lawyer. So wills and estate planning are not my forte. Thankfully, Ricks and Kay does have a very strong private client team. So if wills and estate planning are something you're thinking of and need, then we have people who can advise. But it's not all about wills. Wills are critically important, but you've got a lot of tools in your armory. So you've got the whole later life planning element about this. You've got wills and estate planning. So you draft your will. You make sure that the people you need to protect will be protected. That could be by way of tax structuring. That could be by way of trust planning. It could be, there are a lot of different tools that you can use to make sure that people are looked after. If you don't take those steps, which, Wayne, is where you started, then your risk is that things pass to people you might not want them to pass to. And then, of course, that leaves the family in a bit of bother in terms of who's running what as far as the business is concerned. But you've also got massive inheritance tax implications that could have been taken into account had you started your planning at an earlier stage. Wills are very similar to what we've already been talking about in terms of shareholders' agreement, in that they are not cast in stone. People's circumstances change.
Yeah.
So you might put a will in place when you're newly married, you've just set up the business. You might need to change the provisions of that will when children come along. You will need to change the provisions of that will again when your children reach adulthood, possibly.
Yeah.
But you need to be thinking about it. You might, if you do exit your business, your will need to change again because you are in a different position. You're no longer a shareholder, but you might be sitting on a wad of cash. So there are lots of different life circumstances that should be triggers for you to be reviewing your housekeeping, legal housekeeping, whether that is a will, whether that's a lasting power of attorney, whether in the context of a business that's your shareholders agreement. Lots of different triggers should move you to just have another look, review the provisions, see if they still work for your circumstances as they are now. The key is to be having the thought process regularly. So failing to put any sort of will or estate planning in place just leaves your loved ones and probably your business with a bit of a headache that they don't need, and almost certainly slightly more tax implications than any of them would have wanted.
And that's the key, really. I mean, the tax implications, if you don't get this right, are huge, depending on obviously the size of your business as well. And more importantly, the headaches, financial headaches, because sometimes in your family, there may not be the financial wherewithal to actually deal with all this stuff. And even the executives that you may have assigned to your will may not have the wherewithal to actually do all this. So getting it right to take away that headache, because I kid you not, and we've all been through it in different ways. When that time comes, and it will come for all of us in this life, you know, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are, your brain is so discombobulated, you just do not know which way to turn. And having good people around you and to dealing with this stuff to help you to navigate your way, or your loved one to navigate your way through this process, is super important, super critical, so that you're not losing inappropriate money. Andy, you want to speak a little bit more to that as well, please?
So I think when it comes to wills, it's just a fundamental thing that you have, right? So we're not even talking about if you're in a business. It's making sure what you want goes to the people that you want. Now, I'm a father, wife. If I don't have a will in place, and because of intestacy, you're going to potentially see my estate split between my wife and my children. Now, there's not saying that I would like to happen. I would rather my estate, or my part of my estate, go fully to my wife, and then she can make the decisions to distribute it out to my children. And if she chooses to do that, will in place, it removes that part of being able to do that. And I think that's fundamentally key for you, because you don't want anyone to have your family to then be bickering with each other because they've got something and you didn't get something, and that sort of thing. So just having a simple, which don't will enable you to cover that point. Now, just that will happen with that when you go into the business. And if you're growing your business and you're getting to the point where it is making substantial money when you exit, then there's more planning that you might want to put in place when it comes to your will. And there's things called discretionary will trust. When you sell the business, the money actually goes into discretionary will trust, and then it goes out from there. And those are things that you can discuss with a financial advisor or someone like Catherine, who can provide you. The second thing that I think is key, and this is where it comes down to when you're looking to sell a business, is having a lasting power of attorney in place, because you don't know what could happen to you or the next day, and you could be going through a period of where you're making decisions on exiting and something happens to you, which might mean that you might not die, but you might not have the what's the word I'm looking for? You might not have your brain cells and your intelligence in place to make the decisions on behalf. Before you go down an exit route and before you make those decisions, putting in place a lasting power of attorney, which someone who you trust can speak on your behalf if something happens to you, it's also securing your future for yourself and your family.
Yeah. You still there, Andrew?
Yeah, still there.
Okay, all right then. So I've got
Sorry.
a bit blank on my end.
Did you want me to go a little bit more about that? It's just a security process where you
No,
ask
no, it's
someone
fine.
to
It's
look
fine.
after your will if you can't do it in any way because of bad health or something that's happened to you as you go down that route.
It's absolutely critical. Wills and lasting powers of attorney. It's absolutely critical. Couldn't agree more, Andy.
Cool. So if you know when you have now people coming to that end of that process and they're looking to sell the business, they're trying to, and as I say, that's the hard part as well. Tell me a little bit about this element of and I appreciate this is more sort of for you, Andrew, in terms of the sort of pension element, savings aspect. Just to give you that pot, because again, the whole advantage of us, and I've got a number of businesses, is that in several aspects, all you want as a business entrepreneur, well, certainly I do. I want liquidity events at different times of those businesses. Moving forward in terms of how I look to have materialized some of the hard work that we put into those businesses, which provides a nest egg for the future, etc. And one stat I didn't bring out was the fact that not many business leaders and owners have pensions, and I think it's worth speaking to that if you want to, Andrew and Catherine. I'm sure you're going to chime in on that aspect as well.
So I think firstly, if you get to exit, it's a big congratulations for any business owners. So pre-work on this, and I was surprised that 20% of businesses in their first year as an SME fail. So if you can get to the point that you exit, then you've done something really to grow your business into a firm that you can sell to someone else. So I'm a big believer that you should always pat people on the back when they get to that. Now, it's key here because you then, if you've got to that position and you haven't been taking care of yourself, you haven't been doing the correct things for you. Cash flow is key on this. So if you struggle for cash flow, the business needs that money for you to continue to operate, then there are little things that you potentially can't do when it comes to paying into a pension. However, if your cash flow is good and continues to grow, and you're making profitability now and in the future, and with the corporation tax changes over 50,000 going up to 25%, lies in the ability into your own personal pension before corporation tax is taken, so it's a tax advantage for you, and having another line of income when you come to retirement or after you're exiting, for me, is not the right way of going. Having number of pots that you can in the future will help you retirement plans, or if you exit and want to go again, you need to then drive that. I'm talking about pensions because that's what I do, but it could be that you've got money in your balance sheet and you've got that you want to start looking at investing in potentially properties. You can use that money and future pot of money that will come your way that you've done by using profitability of your business. Now, there are things that you might need to do there. So setting up an investment company and having a different structure to keep it out of the trading business, because a business asset liability relief, which we can go into in more detail later, avenues where you earn your money from, and taking that money out is going to be fundamental for you and putting you in a better position when you come to exit. And for me, pension is such a good way. It's outside of your purposes. So if there was anything to come to you, it will go to your family. You die before you're 75, it's tax-free. So if you sell your don't have the right structure and speak to the experts like Catherine, you're probably going to have an inheritance tax now. Paying your money into a pension and then dying, that's out of the estate. That money go to your family tax-free if you are. So it makes more sense to be doing it that way, as long as there is enough cash flow in your business to put it across, and that is key.
No, 100%, and I do love the element of having those different pots that you can have access to, asset bases or
Mm.
whatever you want to call it, to draw upon. If anything happens to you, or you decided that you want to slow down, you've got those pots able to give you some sort of income on an ongoing basis because you know the best one in the world, our pension system is in trouble, So really having something else in addition to that is super important. Catherine,
Mhm.
you want to answer some elements to that, please?
Certainly. I would just like to say in defence of my colleagues who might get a kicking later on for something they've just heard, I don't think we're ever going to be in a position to remove all inheritance tax for people. What we can assist with in conjunction with other advisors is to mitigate the effects of inheritance tax for people.
There you go.
But it is a necessary evil. But of course, that's why you put your plans in place early doors so that you can come up with tax efficient ways of moving
100%.
property and moving your assets in due course. The other thing that I thought was worth mentioning is we're talking about making an exit, selling a business. You don't necessarily have to sell your company to make an exit.
Mhm.
So that's the other thing that people should
That's a good point.
start to be thinking about is it doesn't have to be a trade sale in order to be an exit. So it could be that as we discussed earlier on, one shareholder leaves before another one does. One shareholder might want something different out of their life from what another shareholder might want, and so therefore you need to be thinking about the possibility of different ways of exiting your business and how that would produce those funds for you that you need to fund your retirement or your next venture or whatever it is you're going to do after you leave this particular business.
No, I love that. I've got a lovely example of that of one company we've been working with, and we've been able to help him as an MD to move to chairman role. Unfortunately, he's had the daughter in the business that we're able to help to groom to managing director. And on the back of that, we've been able to help different things going forward. But the bottom line is that the business has exploded in growth. So, it's always complained to him that he should have retired earlier. But that's another matter. But the beauty of the process is that he's taken, and he's only working, half a day, one day a month, or a couple of days a month. But, substantial salary as an executive chairman. And on top of that, he's got the appropriate dividends, which is in double digits EBITDA. So the bottom line is that, like you said, that's been better than any exit for that particular individual.
Well, that's it.
Millions of pounds over the last 15 years that we've been working with them anyway, and it's been a fantastic opportunity. Again, exiting, still maintaining shareholding, but taking dividends as a route. As Andy says, one of those asset pots going forward, and he's used some of that for property as well. So again, another route for coming forward. Tell me a little bit about. I do love this idea about businesses, and I appreciate it has whole inherent issues in relation to buying property, which ultimately, is going to be probably can be a curse and a blessing in many respects in terms of exit. What's your thoughts on should a business really consider, property buying as part of the asset and element as to buffer up not only the balance sheet but also in terms of potential exit going forward?
Me,
Yeah, sure, Catherine.
um, I would probably be inclined to bounce that one to a certain extent because what we don't tend to do is what we don't do at all is give advice on tax, really, in the sense, so we will give
Yeah,
advice
yeah,
on
yeah,
personal tax in
yeah,
the
yeah.
sense of inheritance tax, that sort of thing, tax planning for death and retirement,
Yep, okay,
death.
that.
But in terms of how a business structures itself, I
Legally, yeah.
I think tax is key to that question. And so you
Understand.
need a strategic tax advisor on board to be able to guide you as to whether setting up some sort of subsidiary as a property investment company is going to be a vehicle
Yeah,
that
good one.
works for
Yeah.
you and your business. But tapping into what Andy's just said, I think one of the key things to do there is to make sure that if you are going to be investing in property, you are setting up a subsidiary, or you are hiving out that element of your business so that you are ring fencing risk, so that you keep your trading company separate from your investment company.
No,
But the key person to be talking to before taking any steps along those down that road is definitely your tax advisor.
Yeah, sure. Andrew.
So I think that's key. I think that's key, because if you're looking at selling your business might not want to have the investment property involved in it. So that causes an issue there, because how do you then strip that out if you haven't gone through your accountant and your tax advisor to put in the right structure in place where you've got an investment company, a holding company, your trading company to the side, to whoever looking to buy it. You've also got to, and again, whilst I'm not a tax expert, you've got these things called business relief and business asset disposable relief come into they do get affected if you've got an investment arm in your business. So if there are investments and it's making of income to the trading arm, lose those reliefs that you get in place by separating it, doing it in the correct way, speaking to your business one on a different company, you then bring those reliefs. So, for example, we've been talking about what should you do and things that you might want to do before you exit. Well, if you could pass your shares to part of your shares to your wife 2 years before your exit, consideration of business assets disposal relief, or husband. Sorry, guys, there. I always talk like that. Caught me there. But by doing that, the shares, then you both get 10% on the 1 million relief instead of keeping it yourself. But you have to have 2 years of owning those shares before that relief comes in. The investment arm, does that affect how you can have those reliefs in place because you've got too much income coming out the investment side? So separate that into a different entity, and looking at those things is very key if you have got to the size where you can go down that route. Accountants and tax advisors are excellent.
The other thing that we sometimes see, which can be very successful for business owners, is where the shareholders themselves own the property that the company trades out of.
Yeah.
And then they may find themselves ready for a trade sale, but they keep hold of the property. And you've already got a commercial lease arrangement in place so that everything's at arm's length, and that's a nice little pension pot. So you've got the capital investment of the property, and B, you've got that regular income from the rent that's being paid by the trading company even after you no longer own the trading company. So there are an awful lot of ways of ensuring that property can make you money, whether it's through an existing company, through new companies that you create, whether it's held in your own personal name. But the key, what has to underpin all of that is taking robust tax advice, I think.
And I love that, because that is what happened with one of our customers. They bought a business, and they really felt it was going to be too much of a stretch to take the staff with them to another premises, and so they continued in the same premises, but that premises was in the name of the previous owner of the business, and obviously under lease arrangement. So it was a separate lease. Business deal was done. Separate lease arrangement was done with the owner on that building, and then away to go. So that owner obviously has taken in a rental on the back of that premises going forward. So yeah, super smart, and as you said, Catherine, a real nice efficient way of actually doing that as well. So very good.
Wayne, I'll come in on that if you don't mind. So from my previous role at the bank, I used to look after clients in a non-banked FI space, and we used to have a in our team. Now, when we're talking about this, is also a key thing. By paying into a pension, if you want to purchase, you can do it via. If you haven't got enough funds in that, you can't leverage what the banks will be able to lend out to you, which might be 50% of your pension pot. So if you're not looking at that and you're just thinking that you're not going to put any money into your own pension pot, you're taking away the fact that the property that your business works from, that is sitting in your own SIP, which generates you further income in the future. So there's another thing that you might want to look at.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. Very good. Okay. All right. So we got a scenario, folks. We got the scenario where an individual, they've been working hard. They haven't really been thinking, as always, as business owners, we don't think about ourselves. We always think about last until an event happens. Some event, maybe a healthcare event, maybe a personal issue event, maybe, whatever. Unfortunate circumstances happen to us all. And so, when somebody's certainly has worked very, very hard later on in life, um, thinking about retirement, and health event has probably, hit them and then start to think about retirement, but they're finding that their foundation that they have is not good in place. They haven't got pension, they haven't been doing well in their savings. They've been spending as their means because they can do. They're the 2 holidays and 2 dogs, and they haven't really been, having that sort of, the plan to sort of save effectively for themselves. So as far as they're concerned, they wanted the business to actually be their pension and exit out effectively through a trade sale or whatever means. But they're stuck, and they realize they're stuck. What should they do? What are the sort of top 5 things that they should be doing as well? So I haven't got to think, but just think about those 5 things that these guys should do now. They're later on in life, near retirement, but not real having that real financial plan, and realize potentially there could be some health issues along the way if they do retire. What should they do now? Just give these guys some hope, because I've come across quite a few of them, and it's tough. It's a tough gig, when you are faced with your mortality. Do you want to start with to kick off, Andrew?
I think the first thing is will help everyone going forward. The more people understand and know, the better off they are going forward. So even if they've got a health issue, it's never too late to start planning. I know that's, some people might think that's crazy,
100%.
but you can still pay into a pension. It might cost you a little bit more, take that as a form of life cover if you haven't gone down the route of not knowing there's an illness there. That might be quite difficult if you've already got those illnesses, but it's never too late to plan. So if your business is generating money, but you know that you're had ill health and your business partner is aware of it, you can work together. The worst thing you can do, and this is fundamentally what I believe is key in this day and age, is keeping it locked up inside, not speaking to someone, not
Very good. I love that.
asking, but this is what, are you there to support me? You could have been in business with your best mate for 20 years. He doesn't want to see that happen to you, but by just having that conversation might just relieve fear. He might then be like all the time. Now, we know where you are. We will continue to support you. We've been on this journey. But having the conversation and telling someone what's happening is the key. Don't keep it all locked up inside.
I love that. Catherine?
I quite like the direction that went in. Yes, so I'll be slightly more black and white and documentary and all of those things. And I think there are various things you can do. And I think Andy's absolutely right. It's never too late. It might not be ideal, but have a look at the documents you did put in place, if you did put anything in place. So have a look at what your articles of association say, have a look at what your shareholders agreement says. If there's anything you can do to amend those, in the knowledge that you might be making an exit rather sooner than perhaps you had thought you would be. So I don't think we're talking about a scenario where someone is about to keel over, but we're talking about a scenario where someone maybe is getting a bit of a wake-up call and thinking, oh crap, give me 5 years and I'm probably going to want to be in retirement. And maybe they hadn't thought about that before. So give yourself as much time as you possibly can. Have a look at the documents, see if you can revise the documents, bearing in mind what you want to achieve and when you want to achieve it. I mean, if we really are talking about emergency situations, then go and test the market, see if there are buyers out there for the business. Have a chat with your management team. You know, is there a second generation that's coming up through the ranks that might want to buy you and your fellow shareholders out? How are you going to go about doing that? There are so many different structures. You know, could you be implementing some sort of employee benefit scheme so that you're motivating your employees so that perhaps in a year or two's time you could be ready for moving into an employee ownership trust or something along those lines. There are
Yeah.
lots and lots of different ways of achieving taking funds out of a business and making your exit, whether that is immediate or whether it's staged in the way that you were talking about with your chairman just now. You know, you could be looking at a management buyout which you effectively fund, you know, by way of loan
Yeah.
notes, so that you're being paid out over the course of a number of years. But
100%.
start to have those thought processes. Talk, as I say, talk to your corporate finance advisor, talk to your tax advisor, talk to your IFA, and as soon as you start to think about the possibility of retirement, have those conversations straight away, because once it's in your head that you don't want to be working there anymore,
There you go.
your business is not going to be functioning as well as it was when you were driving it full speed ahead.
That's a really, really strong and important point as well. You know, the amount of businesses where people come to us and they've, for want of a better word, lost their mojo, and really, you know, just not, you know, they've had enough. The business flatline, they haven't had the profitability that they have, and they always say, "Oh, I'm done. I'm out of it. I want to sell." And I'm always saying, "No, no, not yet. Hold on. Let's work with you. You know, we can get you there." Because it's so important, as you said. You know, once that your mental sense in terms of moving the business forward is gone, the business just nosedives overnight.
Well,
Really.
just in terms of cold hard cash, if you go into, you know, if you find someone that wants to buy the business and they can sense that you're desperate to sell, you can guarantee there are going to be price chips coming your way. So, you know, the ideal time to be looking at a trade sale is actually to be approached by someone who wants you when you don't mind if you sell or not. That's ideal, because then there isn't the desperation to.
100%, and that's why we try and patch people up and say, look, you know, let's get this on the trajectory, even over 3 years. Forget the previous years of rubbish. You know, let's get this on the trajectory of profitability, growth, and you'll have a better chance of selling the business. And the lovely thing about the process, and we've done it so many times, is that people, when they get to that, they're so in love with the business now, they're falling back in love with the business, they want to carry on. Well, I thought you wanted to retire, you know, so that's another thing going forward. But, you know, I've seen the opposite as well. You know, I've seen two individuals, no shareholders agreement, tried as best getting other people involved and good people like yourselves involved in the process to get that in place. Couldn't work. The damages was done. These guys have been working together for 15 to 20 years, built successful businesses. They've had to then resort to legal redress to split it down the middle. One guy was okay in terms of he had some additional, he was better with his finances and assets. The other person, divorce, issues with his money, bad place. And so ultimately, you know, that individual, even though it was split down the middle, was regrettable, but at least he was okay. The other guy is in a position later on in his probably late 50s, having to restart and rebuild again going forward as well. So it's a tough gig, folks. You've got to get the foundations in place, and you've got to be able to ensure that you get good people around you to advise you on these things going forward. So, oh my gosh, our time is gone. It's practically gone anyway, and I just wanted to really just pick up any comments around the internet. I know basically, as I do that, I just want to ask you guys for any sort of final thoughts in relation to what we've been talking about as well. Any sort of one or two key anecdotes, gems that you want the folk listening to this podcast as well as later on to actually know. And let's start with Catherine.
Super. What I would say is, I think what we've probably said one or two times before today is, it's never too late. So if you are waking up now thinking, gosh, perhaps I should have done this 15 years ago, have a look and see what you can do now. Planning, you know, it's never too late to plan, even if you're planning over a shorter time period than you thought you might be. And do have those thought processes. So even if you're in your early 20s and you're only just setting out on a business, start to think about what your exit might look like. And that will change. Your plans will change. Be prepared to change with them. You know, so be prepared to change your documents as your life circumstances change. But knowing that your life circumstances will change is not a good reason for not planning in the first place.
Love that. Love that. And Andrew.
just don't alone. Don't forget there's people and experts around who can support you. Now, if you look at big corporations, they're constantly asking for non-experts to help drive their businesses, to help give them their advice on their
Love
board.
that. Love that. Yes.
Try and give that. And you might not be there yet. You might be a small SME or a startup that's looking, and you might need help. It's not. Don't keep it quiet. Go and speak to experts. It might cost you, but you might generate enough profitability off the back of it that is the best thing you ever have done. I can't build, so I'll never try and do anything in my house to build anything. So I go and speak to an expert in my personal way of life to come and do that. And I know it's a stupid scenario, but that sounds bizarrely insane. Go and speak to someone who will help you get there.
I think that's absolutely valid, because a certain amount of expense up front is likely to save you quite a lot later on down the line.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, folks, as well. So let me just finish off again, just summarising. I'm sure, hopefully, you guys all have got it by now. You've got to start and plan early. Really, really do. And certainly for those who are younger, I think Andrew probably touched on it briefly. Do not negate, do not despise the element of starting small. £100 here, £50 here, because the impact of compounded interest. And if you want to do anything around that, look it up. Compounded interest on your savings. You start at 20, you'll have a massive pension pot, the time you get to, your 60s or wherever it is. So it's a really super important principle of starting early. That's one aspect. And again, this big thing about it, starting with the end goal. What do you want to achieve in relation to your, retirement? You may be still have your health. You may still want to do things. You may have a bucket list to go through. What do you want to achieve? And then use that with your financial advisors and planners to work backwards and say, okay, what do I need to really have an exit pot or whatever it is, or an income to allow me to achieve what I want to achieve going forward in this life as well. And we've said it so many times, and we won't make any apologies for saying it again. Get strong advisors around you on the journey, all aspects of the journey, not only in the beginning, not only in the middle, but also at the end as well, and have them for life, because they understand your circumstances, understand your situation. They'll be able to help you as you develop and grow as a person, and obviously as your business as well. So thank you again for getting involved as well. Just letting you know that, for us, we help companies to grow as well, and also help them to prepare for exit, working with good people like Catherine and Andy and on the journey. So, please reach out if you want to do that. And of course, please as well contact us. Catherine and Andrew are both on LinkedIn. So, again, reach out to them on LinkedIn if you want to have further chat with both of them as well. And obviously, clearly, you see my details there on the screen. Take a screenshot or whatever you want to do going forward. This obviously podcast will be on YouTube. It'll be now on LinkedIn Live forever. I'm sorry, folks. You're going to face it in right, you can't erase it anymore, right? So we do appreciate you guys coming on board. Really thank you again, folks, for making the opportunity to spend time with Catherine, Andy. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, those folks who have come on the call. Really do appreciate you coming on the call with us today. To say you can look at it again for reference on those two platforms going forward, as well as Facebook as well. Sorry, and Twitter. So we're all over the place, all over the world. But again, thank you, folks, and have a good afternoon. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Catherine.
Cheers, Wayne.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
All right, good.